that, we bring down the music. And I hope I did that on the closing credits. Haha. And we come up to the main camera and we say, welcome everyone to another Sunday night edition of Accessibly Live, the book club reading room. Hope everyone's having a really good weekend. Whenever you're getting a chance to watch the show, welcome. We are very appreciative of you guys stopping in for another Sunday night. Public domain books is what we do here. For those of you who have been following the news, and there are school districts around the country deciding that, hey, they have the right to ban and burn books and not give you the right to make choices. So here, we give you the choice to either watch, enjoy, and or I should go, hang on, click, turn off the channel. Decisions are yours, nobody else's. Tonight, we actually have a new short story for the Halloween season. We've got a lot of special things this week. Upcoming, I should say. We have The Damn Thing by Ambrose Bierce. Ambrose Bierce, quite a varied range of knowledge and background. He is amazing. Born 1842, died 1914, lived a very long life. He was an American journalist, short story writer, poet, and a survivor of the American Civil War. He lived here in the United States, died in the mountains of Chihuahua, Mexico. Very sad thing. We have got one of his short stories. He's done many poems, but we decided one small short story to kind of kick off the Halloween season. Now, when I say that, I also have big news for you. As I promised last week, we have a big announcement. Not one, but two movies for the Halloween season. A brand new one here on Accessibly Live, all public domain as they always are, and one classic being brought back for another year because you guys really seemed to enjoy it last year. So for those who missed it, we're going to welcome it back on Halloween night, a special night for Accessibly Live. But the brand new movie that we will be showing this year, and I am very excited about, because on the Conversation Station Book Club Reading Room combo presentation of the classic movie title, Accessibly Live premiere of the 1927 classic Metropolis. That is correct. We will be doing Metropolis here on the channel on Sunday night, October 19th at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. Now, we will replay this again for those who miss it on the following Thursday for Accessibly Live, the Conversation Station, and maybe talk a little bit about it before and after the movie. But this is the public domain premiere. This movie is the first movie ever with the idea of a science fiction adventure. The first science fiction film ever, Metropolis. Had a lot of people up in arms on parts of it when it first premiered in 1927, but it was so new, people were just stunned and amazed at the technology and what they were able to pull. We deal with a lot of special effects in movies, but what they did in this movie was groundbreaking. Now, as I said, we have two movies this year, because Metropolis will be the first in the batter's box. The next one, as I said, a classic presentation again here on the channel. Nosferatu will be returning to Accessibly Live on Twitch and YouTube. Friday, October 31st at 7 p.m. It is a special presentation night. There will be no Thursday night edition this year, but what we will do is go live at 7 p.m. on Friday, Halloween night. And I hope everyone gets a chance, if they're not going out or passing out candy, to join us for a live presentation of Nosferatu, the black and white classic. So we've got a lot of movies coming up this month, and I'm really glad that you guys are going to be here with me to enjoy it. But I think it's time to get into the short story. The Ambrose Bierce short story, The Damn Thing. Chapter 1. By the light of the tallow candle, which had been placed on one end of the rough table, a man was reading something written in a book. It was an old account book, greatly worn, and the writing was not apparently very legible, for the man sometimes held the page close to the flame of the candle to get a stronger light upon it. The shadow of the book would then throw into obscurity a half of the room, darkening the number of faces and figures, for besides the reader, 8 other men were present. 7 of them sat against the rough, long log walls, silent and motionless, and the room being small, not very far from the table. By extending an arm, any one of them could have touched the 8th man, who lay on the table, face upward, partially covered by a sheet, his arms at his side. He was dead. The man with the book was not reading aloud, and no one spoke. All seemed to be waiting for something to occur. The dead man was only without expectation. From the blank darkness outside came in, through the aperture that served for a window, all the ever unfamiliar noises of night in the wilderness, the long, nameless note of the distant coyote, the stilly pulsing thrill of the tireless insects in the trees, strange cries of night birds, so different those birds of the day, the drone of the great blundering beetles, and all that mysterious chorus of the small sounds that seem always to have been but half heard when they have suddenly ceased, as if conscious of an indiscretion. But nothing of all this was noted in that company. Its members were not overmuch addicted to the idle interest in matters of no practical importance. It was obvious in every line of their rugged faces, obvious even in the dim light of the single candle. They were evidently men of the vicinity, farmers and woodsmen. The person reading was a trifle different. One would have said of him that he was of the world, worldly, I'll bet. There was that in his attire which attested a certain fellowship with the organisms of his environment. His coat would hardly have passed muster in San Francisco. His footgear was not of urban origin, and the hat that lay by him on the floor, which was the only one uncovered, was such that one had considered it as an article of mere personal adornment. He would have missed its meaning. In countenance, the man was rather prepossessing, with just a hint of sternness, though that he may have assumed or cultivated as appropriate to one in authority. One he has always... Hang on, guys. I gotta double check something. Thank you. For he was a coroner. It was by virtue of his office that he had possession of the book in which the dead man's effects, in his cabin, where the inquest was now taking place. When the coroner finished reading, he put the book into his breast pocket. At that moment, the door was pushed open, and a young man entered. He, clearly not of the mountain birth and breeding, he was clad in those who dwell in the cities. His clothing was dusty, however, as from travel. He had, in fact, been riding hard to attend this inquest. The coroner nodded. No one else greeted him. "We have waited for you," said the coroner. "It is necessary to have done with this business tonight." The young man smiled. "I am sorry to have kept you," he said. "I went away not to evade your summons, but to post to my newspaper an account of what I was supposed I am called back to relate." The coroner smiled. "The account of that you posted in your newspaper," he said, "differs probably from that which you will hear under oath." "That," replied the other, rather hotly and with a visible flush, "is as you choose. I used manifold paper, and have a copy of what I sent. It was not written as news, for it is incredible, but as fiction. It may go as part of my testimony under oath." "But you say it is incredible." "That is nothing to you, sir, if I also swear that it is true." The coroner was apparently not greatly affected by the young man's manifest resentment. He was silent for some moments, his eyes upon the floor. The men about the sides of the cabin talked in whispers, but seldom withdrew their gaze from the face of the corpse. Presently the coroner lifted his eyes and said, "We will resume the inquest." The men removed their hats. The witness was sworn. "What is your name?" the coroner asked. "William Harker." "Age?" 27. "You knew the deceased Hugh Morgan?" "Yes." "You were with him when he died?" "Near him." "How did that happen? Your presence, I mean." "I was visiting him at this place to shoot and fish. A part of my purpose, however, was to study him and his odd solitary way of life. He seemed a good model for a character in fiction. I sometimes write stories." "I sometimes read them." "Thank you." "Stories in general, not yours." Some of the jurors laughed. Again, a somber background humor shows highlights. Soldiers in the intervals of battle laugh easily, and just in the death chamber conquers by surprise. "Relate the circumstance of this man's death," said the coroner. "You may use any notes or memorandum that you please." The witness understood. Pulling a manuscript from his breast pocket, and he held it near the candle, and turning the leaves until he found the passage he wanted to begin to read. Chapter 2. The sun had hardly risen when we left the house. We were looking for quail, each with a shotgun, but we had only one dog. Morgan said that our best ground was certain beyond a certain ridge that he pointed out. We crossed it by trail through the chaparral. On the other side was a comparatively level ground, thickly covered with wild oats. As we emerged from the chaparral, Morgan was but a few yards in advance. Suddenly we heard, at a little distance from ours, and partly in front, a noise as some animal thrashing about in the bushes, which we could see were violently agitated. "We started a deer," he said. "I wish we had brought a rifle." Morgan, who had stopped and was inattentively watching the agitated chaparral, said nothing, but had cocked both barrels of his gun, and was holding it in readiness to aim. I thought him a trifle excited, which surprised me, for he had no reputation for exceptional coolness, even in moments of sudden and imminent peril. "Oh, come," I said. "You are not going to fill up a deer with a quail shot, are you?" Still he did not reply, but catching a sight of his face as he turned it slightly towards me, I was struck by the pallor of it. Then I understood that we had serious business on hand, and my first conjecture was that we jumped a grizzly. I advanced to Morgan's side, cocking my piece as I moved. The bushes were now quiet, and the sounds had ceased, but Morgan was as attentive to the place as before. "What is it? What the devil is it?" I asked. "That damn thing," he replied without turning his head. His voice was husky and unnatural. He trembled visibly. I was about to speak further when I observed the wild oats near the place of the disturbance moving in the most inexplicable way. I can hardly describe it. It seemed as if it stirred by a streak of wind, which not only bent it, but pressed it down, crushed it so that it did not rise, and its movement was slowly prolonged itself directly towards us. Nothing that I had ever seen had affected me so strangely as this unfamiliar and unaccountable phenomenon, yet I am unable to recall any sense of fear. I remember, and I tell it here because, singularly enough, I recollected it then, that once, in looking carelessly out an open window, I momentarily mistook a small tree close at hand for one of a group of larger trees at a little distance away. It looked at the same size as the other, but, being more distinctly and sharply defined in a mass and detail, seemed out of harmony with them. It was a mere falsification of the law of aerial perspective, but it startled, almost terrified me. We so rely upon the orderly operation of familiar natural laws that any seeming suspension of them is noted as a menace to our safety, a warning of unthinkable calamity. So now the apparently causeless movement of the herbage and the slow, undeviating approach of the line of disturbance were distinctly disquieting. My companion appeared actually frightened, and I could hardly credit my senses when I saw him suddenly throw his gun to his shoulder and fire both barrels at the agitated grass. Before the smoke of the discharge had cleared away, I heard a loud, savage cry, a scream like that of a wild animal, and, flinging his gun upon the ground, Morgan sprang away and ran swiftly from the spot. At the same moment, I was thrown violently to the ground by the impact of something unseen in the smoke, some soft, heavy substance that seemed thrown against me with great force. Before I could get to my feet and recover my gun, which seemed to have been struck from my hands, I heard Morgan crying out as if in mortal agony, and mingling with his cries was such hoarse, savage sounds as one hears from fighting dogs. Inexpressibly terrified, I struggled to my feet and looked in the direction of Morgan's retreat. And may heaven in mercy spare me from another sight like that. At a distance of less than 30 yards was my friend, down upon one knee, his head thrown back in a frightful angle, hatless, his long hair in disorder, and his whole body in violent movement from side to side, backward and forward. His right arm was lifted and seemed to lack the hand, at least I could see none. The other arm was invisible. At times, as my memory now reports, this extraordinary scene, which I could discern but was a part of his body, it was as if he had been partially blotted out. I cannot otherwise express it. Then a shifting of his position would bring it all into view again. All of this must have occurred within a few seconds, yet in that time Morgan assumed all the postures of a determined wrestler, vanquished by superior weight and strength. I saw nothing but him, and him not always distinctly. During the entire incident, his shouts and curses were heard, as if through an enveloping uproar of such sounds of savage and fury as I have never heard from the throat of a man or brute. For a moment only I stood resolute, then, throwing down my gun, I ran forward to my friend's assistance. I had a vague belief that he was suffering from some fit or some form of convulsion. Before I could reach his side, he was down and quiet. All sounds had ceased, but with a feeling of such terror as even these awful events had not inspired, I now saw the same mysterious movement of the wild oats prolonging itself from the trampled area about the prostrate man towards the edge of a wood. It was only then it had reached the woods that I was able to withdraw my eyes and look at my companion. He was dead. Chapter 3. The coroner rose from his seat and stood beside the dead man. Lifting an edge of sheet, he pulled it away, exposing the entire body, although naked and showing in a candlelight a clay-like yellow. It had, however, broad maculations of bluish-black, obviously caused by excavated blood from contusions. The chest and sides looked as if they had been beaten with a bludgeon. There were dreadful lacerations. The skin was torn in strips and shreds. The coroner moved around to the end of the table and undid a silk handkerchief, which had been passed under the chin and knotted the top of the head. When the handkerchief was withdrawn away, it exposed what was been to the throat. Some of the jurors who had risen to get a better view repented their curiosity and turned away their faces. Witness Harker went to the open window and leaned out across the still, faint and sick. Dropping the handkerchief upon the dead man's neck, the coroner stepped to an angle of the room. From a pile of clothing produced one garment after another, each of which he held up a moment after inspection. All were torn and stiff with blood. The jurors did not make a closer inspection. They seemed rather uninterested. They had, in truth, all seen this before, the only thing that was new to them being Harker's testimony. "Gentlemen," the coroner said, "we have no more evidence, I think. Your duty has been already explained to you. If there is nothing you wish to ask, you may go outside and consider your verdict." The foreman rose, a tall, bearded man of 60, coarsely clad. "I should like to ask one question, Mr. Coroner," he said. "What asylum did this last witness escape from?" "Mr. Harker," said the coroner, gravely and tranquilly, "from what asylum did you last escape?" Harker flushed crimson again, and said nothing, and the 7 jurors rose and solemnly filed out of the cabin. "If you have done insulting me, sir," said Harker, as soon as he and the officer were left alone with the dead man, "I suppose I am at liberty to go." "Yes." Harker started to leave, but paused, with his hand on the door latch. The habit of profession was strong in him, stronger than the sense of personal dignity. He turned about and said, "The book that you have there, I recognize it as Morgan's diary. You seemed greatly interested in it. You read in it while I was testifying. May I see it? The public would like—" "The book will cut no figure in the matter," replied the official, slipping it into his coat pocket. "All the entries in it were made before the writer's death." As Harker passed out of the house, the jury re-entered and stood about the table, on which now the covered corpse showed under the sheet with sharp definition. The foreman seated himself near the candle, produced from his breast pocket a pencil and scrap of paper, and wrote there laboriously the following verdict, which the various degrees of all efforts all signed. "We, the jury, do find that the remains come to the end of their death at the hands of a mountain lion, but some of us think, all the same, they had fits." Chapter 4. In the diary of the late Hugh Morgan are certain interesting entries having, possibly, a scientific value of suggestions. At the inquest upon his body, the book was not put in evidence. Possibly the coroner thought it not worth it, while to confuse the jury. The date of the first of the entries mentioned cannot be ascertained, but the upper part of the leaf is torn away. The part of the entry remaining is as follows. Would run in a half circle, keeping his head turned always towards the center, and again he would stand still, barking furiously. At last he ran away into the brush as fast as he could. I thought at first he had gone mad, but on returning to the house found no other alterations in his manner than that which obviously due to fear of punishment. Can a dog see with his nose? Do odors impress some olfactory center with images of things emitting them? September 2nd. Looking at the stars last night as they rose above the crest of the ridge east of the house, I observed them successively disappear, from left to right. Each was eclipsed but an instant, and only a few of the same time. But along the entire length of the ridge, all were within a degree or two of the crest were blotted out. It was as if something had passed along between me and them, but I could not see it, and the stars were not thick enough to define its outline. Ugh, I don't like this. Several weeks' entries are missing, 3 leaves being torn from the book. September 27th. It has been about here again. I find evidence of its presence every day. I watched again all last night in the same cover, gun in hand, double charged with buckshot. In the morning, the fresh footprints were there, as before. Yet, I would have sworn I did not sleep, indeed. I hardly sleep at all. It is terrible, insupportable. If these amazing experiences are real, I shall go mad. If they are fanciful, I am mad already. October 3rd. I shall not go. It shall not drive me away. No, this is my house, my land. God hates a coward. October 5th. I can stand it no longer. I have invited Harker to pass a few weeks with me. He has a level head. I can judge from his manner if he thinks me mad. October 7th. I have the solution of the problem. It came to me last night, suddenly, as by revelation. How simple, how terribly simple. There are sounds that we cannot hear. At either end of the scale are notes that stir no chord of the imperfect instrument to the human ear. There are too high or too grave. I have observed a flock of blackbirds occupying an entire treetop, the tops of several trees, and all in full song. Suddenly, in a moment, all absolutely the same instant, all spring into the air and fly away. How? They could not at all see one another. Whole treetops intervened. At no one point could a leader have been visible to all. There must have been a signal of warning or command, high and shrill above the din, but by me unheard. I have observed, too, that the same simultaneous flight when all were silent among not only blackbirds, but other birds. Quail, for example, widely separated by bushes, even on opposite sides of the hill. It is known to seamen that school of whales basking or sporting on the surface of the ocean, miles apart, with the convexity of the earth between them, will sometimes dive at the same instant, all gone out of sight in a moment. The signal has been sounded, too grave for the ear, of the sailor at the masthead and his comrades on the decks, who nevertheless feel the vibrations in the ship as the stones of a cathedral are stirred by the bass of an organ. As with sounds, so with colors. At each end of the solar spectrum, the chemist can detect the presence of what are known as acentic rays. They represent colors, integral colors of the composition of light, which are unable to discern. The human eye is an imperfect instrument. Its range is but a few octaves of the real chromatic scale. I am not mad. There are colors that we cannot see. And God help me, the damn thing is of such a color. And that was the damn thing. Hope you guys like that. I don't know if you picked it up halfway through the story, but somebody was having a close encounter of the second kind. First kind, second kind. For those of you guys know the levels of close encounters of the first, second, or third, sounds like the old man had seen something fly across the horizon, blocking out the stars, land, and take up residence on his land. An intriguing story. I like that story. I hope you guys did too. We always ask that when you guys get a chance here on Twitch and on YouTube, please help me out. Like and subscribe to the channel. It does do the algorithm a lot of good. And, allows me to know that you guys are enjoying the content. And I appreciate everybody who does come in to the show. The damn thing. Ambrose Bierce. It was a good story, and I hope you liked it. Next week, in preparation of a couple really good movies coming up, we have more short stories. We have some legendary stories. We have some fairy tales. Next week, we will have several Grimm's fairy tales here on the channel. And I hope you guys stop by, turn down the lights, and let me tell you some classic Grimm's fairy tales. Looking forward to it. Looking forward to having you guys stop by. Before we go, as we do on the Sunday night show and the Thursday night show, we do a final quote for the night. And this one, from just past Thursday, of the legendary news reporter, news anchor, good human being, the legendary Walter Cronkite. Your final quote for the night. Whatever the cost of our libraries, the price is cheap compared to that of an ignorant nation. Whatever the cost of our libraries, the price is cheap compared to that of an ignorant nation. And we've been seeing that, guys, haven't we? We've been seeing a few months down in Florida, in Texas, in Tennessee, in other states who are being controlled by organizations that tell you that you're not allowed to read something without their permission, or you have no right to read that no matter what you want. Sorry, that ain't the reason. That ain't a good reason. You guys have the right to watch and read or not read anything you do not want or want to see or read. You guys have that right. No one has that right to take it away from you. That's what called freedoms of the United States. Except those that they're slowly taking away from us. We are getting out of here. Next week, as I said, some Grimm's fairy tales for you. And don't forget, in a couple weeks, Accessibly Live will premiere the 1927 classic, Metropolis, on Sunday, October 19th at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. And I hope you guys pass the word along to everybody who likes classic movies. This could be an amazing event. And I hope you guys join us. Because remember, on Halloween night, not on a Thursday night this year, but we return to the original Nosferatu, the original vampire movie. Looking forward to you guys stopping in. I am Joel K. This is Accessibly Live, the book club reading room. Every single Thursday night is our sister channel, the Conversation Station, and on every Sunday night, the book club reading room, which you are a part of tonight. We're going to get out of here. Hope everyone has a wonderful week ahead. Be well, be safe, be kind. There is a lot of craziness out there right now in the world and a lot of stupid people out there. Rise above it. Be better than that. And do some amazing things, guys. Hope to see you guys next Thursday for the Conversation Station and next week for some Grimm's Fairy Tales. Take care, you guys. Have a good night. See you soon. Bye-bye.